Hello, sister leaders. Dr. Karen Hills Pruden here. And if you see me, that I have smart friends with me. I have a sister leader here that we go way back, way back. And so I am excited to learn more about her. And as you know, I've done my little research and I have questions, and we're going to get all up in her business, but we're going to learn about how wonderful she is. And so, Sarah Valentine, welcome to the Sister Leaders Podcast.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. So, first, I want to talk about just your career because you have a wonderful career, almost 2 decades. And so, my first question is you've held leadership roles in HR across industries such as healthcare, hospitality, and entertainment. What attracted you to human resources in the first place?
It's a great question. Um, I I experienced a company that didn't have HR. I was 20 years old, single mother to a 2-year-old son, and they didn't pay me on time a lot. At one point, I went a month without pay. And I remember calling my sister to meet me at the gas station and then take me to the grocery store because I didn't have money. And I couldn't go to the owner because they were the person that was in charge of payroll. And I felt like if I said anything, I'd be terminated or fired, right? So at that time, I was working on my degree and I was actually a finance and accounting major. And I was really bored. So when I talked to my advisor, they said, "What about HR?" And I was like, "Well, tell me about that." And I was like, "Yep, that's what I want to do." I do, looking back on that, I think that was a God moment. I've had a few of those throughout my career, where he just pointed me in the right direction and the door opened and I walked through it. So I got to get my degree with business administration with a focus in HR, and then landed my first awesome job at the DC bar as the HR assistant in Washington.
So let's talk about some of the employers that you've had in those various industries. So from SeaWorld Parks to Give Kids the World Village, you've led HR in both corporate and mission-driven organizations. So what are some of the biggest differences in how HR operate between the two?
Sure, great question. Um, Working for SeaWorld is private equity, right? So it is very numbers and profit driven. It has a wonderful mission of caring for animals. Um, you know, that is there, but there is a very serious focus on metrics, KPIs, hitting numbers, attendance, dynamic pricing. And so the people piece often fell to the wayside, right? It was there, but it wasn't the central focus. Whereas Give Kids the World Village, which brings magic and hope to critically ill children and their families. We work with wish granting organizations, the big one being Make a Wish. We partner with them to fulfill wishes. And we really focus on the people. Like, we have to focus on being a nonprofit and being financially um, responsible with the funds that we raise, but we are very people focused because our focus is making dreams come true for a week, and we don't get our do over. We can't customer service to make it right or give them another wish. That's not how it works. So it has to be people centric. Um, and that's a big difference. And it's been, for me, a relief because I'm not so driven by the numbers. You're driven by the people. And that's what HR, I feel, is really about.
I love that. So let's talk about simply HR, and so what did running your own HR consultancy teach you that you still apply today as vice president working for someone else?
Great question. So HR, Simply HR, I founded in 2012 on a whim because somebody I knew needed some help recruiting. And I I kept it and I had a few clients, but back in 2018, I found myself without employment pretty quickly. I was let go very abruptly, and I didn't have anything. So, but I had Simply HR in my back pocket. So I got with my marketer, Cheryl Brown, and she helped me get the website up, and I was able to get a contract, and then one contract turned into another. And one of the clients I worked with was Fulfilltopia and Mobile One Courier Services out of Virginia Beach. And the Mobile One side was responsible for transporting organs. So the logistics side had to be really, really precise, and they had to make sure they had the right people in the right seats. And working with that client made me remember why I love HR. I mean, it was a really great partnership of putting new HR processes in place, the talent acquisition, making sure their recruiting was streamlined, helping them really define the core values for the Philtopia side. All of those little parts of HR I was able to touch without the background noise of corporate politics, because politics can become such a loud noise that the focus of HR gets lost. So it renewed my love for HR, so that when I went back to Colonial Williamsburg as the director of HR, I felt reinvigorated into my role and remembering what HR was really about. And that helped make me successful. So remembering what HR's role is probably the most important thing I've learned through Simply HR. Like that's what Simply HR has
The
done.
human part of human resources. The
Yes.
human part of human resources.
There is the H before the R.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about heart, the heart principle. So you created the heart leadership principle. Can you walk us through what heart stands for and why you believe it's needed in leadership today?
Yeah. So I love that it, reflects my last name. I think that's a God wink, because that I was actually working on this before I got my last name. Um, you know, I, before COVID, the workplace had started to feel a little different. And then COVID happened. And I always ask people, where were you when the world stopped? Because the world stopped. And it's kind of like the 9/11, as we're approaching that anniversary. Everybody remembers where they were. And post COVID, people came back to work, but not the same. People who spent years at an organization, 30 years, 20 years, 40 years, they were let go without ceremony, without benefits, in a global pandemic. No benefits, no money. And people felt that. And so when we had to get the country up and running again in 2021, and then in full swing in 2022, people didn't come back to work the same. They came back a little traumatized, a little angry, a little hurt. So as I found myself in really extreme HR situations with people, I realized the leaders in place were not equipped to handle the conversations that they were handling, because prior to COVID, I don't think they were as frequent, because everybody was kind of a well-oiled machine. Just simple conversations. And by creating heart, I read a lot. I'm an avid reader, and I always like to read a book to gain more knowledge and say, oh, let me take that back to my workplace, my new
Mhm.
skill. It's hard to do that with some of the books I read about leadership, because there's a lot of pieces to it and it feels a little overwhelming. The heart method is a way to do it immediately, because it's not rocket science, but it's still difficult. It's the simplest, most difficult thing you'll do. It's pretty simple to remember. H is for hearing, which really means to be an authentic listener. As someone who gains rapport through conversations, I've had to learn to just be quiet and listen to somebody, because sometimes that's all the person needs is a listening ear. The E is for empathy. I think if you can really be truly empathetic and put yourself in that other person's situation and try to feel what they're feeling in that moment, it enables the leader to relate better. It doesn't mean that you have to let them off the hook, not hold them accountable or anything like that. It just means you understand where they are so you can meet them where they are. And then the A, acknowledging how you feel, how they feel, appreciating them, and apologizing when necessary. You know, I had an interesting conversation with a manager today. She had an employee come to her and was very upset because she called her the wrong name. And the employee was like, you don't like me, and you called me a different name. I don't understand. That leader in that moment took a minute and apologized, and then explained why she missed the name, because another person usually works on Tuesday nights. And so she was training 20 volunteers in front of her, and it just came out. That leader did the right thing in that moment by apologizing and just explaining and hearing them. And the employee went right back to work and everything was fine. Their leader had a difference of opinion, didn't think they should have apologized. I was like, no, they did absolutely the right thing. So something as simply as an apology can go such a long way, such a long way. And that leads you to respond, and respond with recognition, respond with action planning. Maybe there's something you can help them with. And finally, you just thank them. Thanking people is not gone out of style. If anything, bring it back because well, thank you at the end of the day from your boss or from somebody that you've helped goes a really long way. So that's the heart framework. It's hear, empathize, acknowledge, respond, and think. It's super easy, but you'd be amazed at how sometimes how difficult it is to do, because it takes time and it makes you have to connect with people. And sometimes that's hard to do when you've got 15 meetings and your deadline is yesterday. But that's where the human gets lost when you don't have the heart. So,
Absolutely. Can we dig down a little bit more into that? So, if a leader listening today, listening to this interview today, wanted to start applying heart tomorrow, what's the very first step that they can take?
yeah, write it down, put it somewhere where you can see it, and then take one of those letters and apply it to someone in your work immediately or at home. You know, sometimes your spouse, you just got to thank them for showing up for you, right? Because they're your person. Just do one of them. I often give the example, we're also busy when we see people. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. Oh, great. Me too. But are you really? And if
Mhm.
you see it on somebody's face, stop a moment and listen to them. It could reset their whole day. Reset their whole day. So it's just take one of those and do it. And then the next day, do it again. And then when you know you're going to have a conversation, pull it out in front of you and prepare, because sometimes you do need to have, you know, a critical conversation, a difficult conversation, because to hold somebody accountable is equal to loving them and caring for them. So you can use it in a way that makes that conversation go a lot smoother. So that's how I began to do it when I was first mapping it out. I was like, I want to, if this really works. You know, I've done the research, but I started doing it and applying it at work, and it does work 100%.
Awesome. So let's talk about those instances where there may be a little bit of struggle. So many leaders struggle with balancing accountability and empathy.
Mhm.
How does your framework, the heart framework, help leaders find that balance?
Yeah. Well, the second letter is empathy. So you first have to listen, and then you sit in it in a moment to feel, to try to understand the person. And then that acknowledging and responding piece, you may find yourself fluctuating a little bit back and forth between the A and R, but that's the time that you can take to get to the root cause of whatever is happening. Because most of the times when I hear about performance issues or somebody just not measuring up, there's a root cause. They
Mhm.
didn't have a tool, they didn't have a resource, they didn't understand, they were too confused, they didn't want to be a burden by asking questions. Between the acknowledging and responding part of heart, you're creating a safe space to have that difficult conversation, which will allow the manager to hold them accountable in the end. So you can leverage the heart method to get the critical conversations done in a manner that doesn't put the light out, right? Because it's hard to get feedback. Critical feedback is really difficult to get. But if it's done with heart, people can usually get there, right? And there's always, like I tell people that come in to see me, there's always a couple people that you can never get to they're gonna,
Mhm.
but most people are hardworking and they want to do a good job. So that's
I
how
love
I
that.
think it could work.
I don't want to linger with the heart because I want them to reach out to you. So we're not going to get too deep into your meat and potatoes for heart. But I think you've shared enough that piqued their interest on knowing more. So let's talk about your article that you wrote on HR burnout for SHRM. So why do you think burnout is such a pressing matter in HR right now?
Yeah. A fun quote I use about HR: we're like the president. No one likes us until they need us. We are. We're like the president. It's interesting. Prior to COVID, yes, I saw a lot of things starting to percolate on DEI and training and development. And then the world stopped with COVID, and everybody said, "Where's HR?" HR was called on to let go of millions of people on the spot.
Mhm.
Some did it well, some didn't. Um, and they were looked at and they were put in the spotlight. And then in 21 and 2022, when we had to gear it back up again, HR was like, "Hey, where are you?" So I feel like burnout happened during this course of COVID, really and truly. Um, People didn't come back to work the same. Mental health crises is up, right? Suicide is the number 2 killer of teenagers in America. Their parents are working in our companies. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Mhm.
All of that pressure is put on HR. We not only have to perform the business, go get the talent, keep the talent, develop the talent, we have to take care of the talent, the wellness piece. Well, I asked the question because I was going through burnout during my time at SeaWorld. It's just a lot. I saw it in droves, and I asked the question, who's taking care of HR? And so
Mhm.
as I pivoted, when the opportunity came up for Give Kids the World and I was selected, I was overjoyed because the mission is just so, oh, it's so great. Um, it allowed me to have a moment to breathe and really see it for what it was, because the village, due to the critical illnesses we deal with, their COVID comeback didn't happen until 2022. They were completely closed. So we had to ramp up very quickly, and I saw it again. And so I was able to have a moment to breathe and really see the impact. And I'm talking to my HR peers, my successor at SeaWorld, Katie Finkston. She told me, you can't fill from an empty cup, Sarah. You have to take care of you, and HR pours into everybody every day, every day. So I got inspired, started doing some research, realized I wasn't alone, and wrote it and got the call from Sherman. I was like, yes, I'm on to something. So I really think it's important for HR people to seek out HR people, because we don't have an HR department. We have a CEO, and I'm lucky I've had two great ones, but not everybody does. So networking with other SHRM chapters, other female leaders or male leaders, if you need that, I really think that's important, because HR people are hit, we see new job, yay, promotion, yay. We see children, yay, that's great. But we also see death. um,
Mhm.
we also see terminations, we see severance, we see people during their medical crisis. Like, that's a lot. That is a lot. So I really hope if they haven't read it, they read it, and they let their leaders at their organization read it to help fix the HR burnout that's happening.
Yes, absolutely. So, reflecting on your almost 2 decades of experience, what's the most significant change you've witnessed in the HR field?
Minus the COVID thing. Prior to COVID, the Me Too movement. um, for good or bad, we all saw the stories, the Matt Lauers. I think that surprised everybody.
Mhm.
um, but it's spotlighted again HR, and I remember listening to folks around me and hearing them say, where was their HR department? That HR department didn't do anything. And I was like, whoa, hold on. If it's done well, HR could have stopped all of that.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
But the Me Too movement just opened the floodgate on things that largely went untold. And HR departments really found themselves in need of legal services, and all of a sudden you got the budget for it, right? Because a lot
Mhm.
of companies don't have it.
Mhm.
They ramped up their investigation teams, their policies, making sure that everything was documented. The best organization that I've ever worked for that had the best process was Colonial Williamsburg, hands down, hands down. The way that everything was documented, it was a union environment, so we had to be on our toes, of course, but it was really, really well done. But I don't think that would have happened had the Me Too movement not, happened. And then the rise in the DNI that came afterward was really important, really, really important, because I had seen things throughout my career, but now they were getting a voice. And that
Mhm.
was really important. And HR, I felt, was really getting a seat at the table for the first time. So that's
Absolutely. So let's talk about engagement. What's one innovative engagement practice you've seen really work in human resources?
yeah. The practice of transparency when you can be transparent. HR, we're a little bit of the cloak and dagger, right? For the company. So I always try, if I can share why something's happening, share it. Don't hide behind it. Don't try to make excuses. Practice transparency. It'll impact your culture in brilliant ways, because people then begin to trust what they're being told instead of thinking the company is feeding them something. Employees are smart professional people. They're not children that need to be put in lines like in school, or told fables to make things seem better. They're smart. So I, particularly at the village, we have really worked hard at the executive committee level to be as transparent, open, and honest as possible with our storytellers, which is what we call our employees.
Mhm.
And that's really helped our culture. We've seen the pendulum swing the other direction, and it's been very uplifting. So for me, it's transparency.
So that's a good segue into, I want to talk about faith and values, because many times we hear, you put your faith in your pocket when you go to work and, you know, so let's talk about, you've shared that your Christian faith is the cornerstone of your leadership philosophy. So how does faith really show up in your day-to-day decision making as a HR leader?
Yeah. So every job I've ever had, God gave me. And I know it because the first job I had with the District of Columbia Bar, the manager who interviewed me, Latanya Hunter, was from my little hometown in little Tidewater, Virginia, and saw the town on my resume and said, she's going to work hard. Now, what are the chances that in DC, somebody from my little hometown is there to hire me? Then the next job came to me, and it gave me a chance to be an HR manager. And then Colonial Williamsburg called, and then Bush called for SeaWorld, and then SeaWorld promoted me, and then Give Kids the World landed in my lap. And I know that I would never have gotten to where I am without God, because I'm not the most qualified in the room. There are plenty of HR people out there that are way better at their job than I am. That's just facts. um, and I've had some really hard lessons in HR. But I've tried to grow from them, and I've felt God all the way through my career, even when He was correcting me. Those were always the hardest. So
Hmm.
when people come to see me, I have Jesus in my office with me. They know that, and I stand behind it. I listen to people. There are a lot of people who are of different faith than me that I work with. And I feel that by being open to having conversations makes them more comfortable to share their faith with me. And I think that brings us closer together as a people. So my God is a good God, and He has been with me. I don't know what He sees in me, but I'm sure glad He does. So yeah, I bring my faith along with me 100%.
So that may be answering my next question, which is what advice would you give leaders of faith who want to integrate their values into their work without crossing professional boundaries?
Sure. I think that's a really difficult one, I think bringing your true authentic self to work is something that I think everybody wants. And if you're a person of faith, your authentic person is your faith is who you are. So I think the answer is creating psychological safety for everyone in the room. And you can do that by taking that leap of faith, and sharing. And I don't think you need to bring a hammer or a microphone or a drum. You can do it in ways that is something simple. Like, for example, we lost a storyteller at the village, and people would come to me, and my thoughts and prayers are with you. No one's offended by that, right? Because they know it's from a place of caring. So I think bring your authentic self, and if faith is part of you, that's part of it, and create that psychological safety around you for others to be able to do the same. And I think psychological safety has become maybe a little bit of a buzzword lately, but it's
Mhm.
really important because we all have micro moments with people every single day. And if you take those micro moments with that one person and think about it, that's all they know of you. So be careful with the micro moments that you're given,
Mhm.
because if it's filled with you look down, you don't acknowledge them, you're rushing all the time, you're dismissive, that's who you are to them. But if it's filled with kindness, respect, caring, and a little bit of faith, you've now created psychological safety for that person. And that took me a minute to wrap my head around. But it's very true.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move into personal growth and education. Through my research, I saw that you attended a program that I completed myself, Yale's Women's Leadership Program. And so, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Um, that was a big program, Karen. It was like 8 months of my life. So you were actually the inspiration for me to go to that specific program. I was feeling at the time like I wasn't quite ready to go after my MBA, which now I am, but I wanted to do a soft step into the Yale program. And I think I enjoyed two pieces of the program. One, really understanding how I make decisions as a leader, the matrix that they put you through was really eye-opening to me. I learned that maybe I need to not bring in so many people to help make every little decision. You know, HR inclusion, but I need to maybe scale that back. And that was eye-opening for me because sometimes I don't think I include enough. So that was really, really great. The other piece was the journaling process that they make you go through, right? And you start at the one side, and at the end of the program, I had met a lot of my goals, and understanding who I was as a leader and how to make those safe environments. That was probably the biggest lesson I got out of it. And it was super rewarding. I would recommend it to any lady leader, sister leader out there. Like, if you're looking for a program to sharpen those skills and to get a lot of self reflection out of, that's a great one because it is very self reflective.
Awesome. So let's talk about mentorship or maybe pivotal moments in our career. So looking back, what pivotal moment or mentor shaped you the most, MOST, as a leader?
Yeah. The most, Cynthia Howell, my very first HR director. She's still my mentor. I still call her when I'm like, I don't know what to do. um, I remember the first time I interviewed her, I walked in and I sat down and she asked me why I want the job. And I said, I just want a chance. I won't let you down. It was almost like I was begging, just hire me, please. And she said, so you want to learn HR? I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you everything. And I was like, okay, not knowing a clue what I was getting into. Then I started, and I she and my manager at the time, one went out for maternity, the other had FMLA, and I had to be there for the team to learn and keep the day-to-day going. And I remember feeling, wow, she trusts me so much, and I'm making mistakes left and right. I probably drove her insane. um but she gave me a safe space to fail. And what I know of HR is you have to fail to learn sometimes.
Mhm.
So I think we live in an environment where people are afraid to fail because of the maybe the punishment or corrective action. But Cynthia always turned the failure into a lesson. And I remember she asked me, like, my second year with her, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to be a VP by 40. And she was like, oh, okay, well, you're going to have to learn office politics. And I was like, no. And so for the next 4 years with her, anytime I would struggle, she'd be like, VP? VP's there? And at the end, I was like, I don't want it. But I often, when I find myself in a situation, I remember how she handled it, and it helps me. So I've had a lot of mentors, you being one of them. Um, my former boss who passed, Chris Andrews,
Mhm,
he also sticks with me a lot too. Just
mhm,
amazing boss in person. Uh,
mhm,
but Cynthia the most because she's still with me 18
mhm.
years down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about writing and storytelling. So you co-authored Undeterred, sharing the stories of women who found their voice and seat at the table. What was the story you contributed and why was it important for you to share it?
Yeah, I told my origin story. That's what I call it, the origin story. Um, at a very young age, I made mistakes, got into trouble, became a single mom and a college dropout by 19. And I had to pick myself up and really work hard. And by the grace of God, I got into the DC bar with Cynthia. And then I got my next job. And then I got my next job. And every job God gave to me, every single one. And I was not deserving of all of them. I know that. Um, and every time I made a mistake, he was right there to tell me, no, 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 that's not what you do. This is about people, Sarah. And I remember when I was writing that chapter, my goal that I told Cynthia about being a VP by 40, I got the offer for the VP of HR for Busch Gardens Williamsburg a month before that chapter was written. And it's really funny. As I was writing the chapter, that's when I remembered what I told Cynthia. And I was writing about God, and I was like, look at God, look at him. So that's what I talked about, and what a challenge it was to get to that point, because it is challenging, particularly as a female. Um, yeah, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, but we definitely should find a solution to the problem of making it a better way for females to climb a ladder, because it shouldn't be that difficult. Not when you look around and see so many others just floating up, no problem.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So
So
that
let's talk, yeah,
that's
let's
a
talk
great
about
experience.
telling a little bit before as we close out. So why do you believe storytelling, whether it's in books, articles, or just merely leadership conversations, but why do you believe storytelling is such a powerful tool for leaders?
Yeah. So before I got to Give Kids the World, I don't think I would have really thought this, but the village is full of stories. I mean, story after story after story of serendipitous things and godly things that happen. Um, my former CEO, Pamela Landworth, she was at the village for 38 years. And she had so many stories about the village. And when I remember starting my orientation, and I was just blown away by everybody's story. I was like, I'm never going to have a story ever. um, but I did. I did. And it came in the form of Zach Doyle, a little boy who came to the village. He was what we call a rush wish, and 8 years old, in a wheelchair, and just full of light and hope. And we met him, And we all fell in love with him. And by the end of his week, we were like, come back and see us, Zach. And then a couple, maybe a month down the road, his mom, Susan Doyle, called John Flashner, who we called Flash. And she's like, he's just so sad. And he talks about the village. And so Flash created this plan for us to bring, they were going to come back and visit the village because alumni family can come back 2 times a year. And so we were going to bring him back for his little visit, but he couldn't stay on the property because that could be a double wish. And that's not a thing. But what we did is I was going to the Extraordinary Women's Conference in Lynchburg, Virginia that weekend. Zach lives in Lynchburg, Virginia. So as I'm getting out of the conference, my mother-in-law and I go to Zach's house and we pull up into the driveway and his dad's there. And I'm like, Zach, I came all the way from the village to see you. And I have your offer letter here. And we offered him a job as assistant Mayor Clayton of the village. And he came back and he was Flash's boss. And he had these little business cards and he would say, call me if you need anything. Right. And we had this big soiree in November where we try to earn a lot of money. He was our star of that. And he was not feeling the best, but he was just so full of life. And I was like, Zach, I need a picture. And he's like, you don't need a picture of me. Just be with me. 8 years old. And so in December of that year, last year, he passed. And we all at the village watched his funeral. And in the eulogy, his dad, Ben, was like, Sarah Valentine came to our house and gave him an offer letter. And you wouldn't know anything about Zach unless I told you the story of Zach. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't know anything about the village unless I told you about it. And so storytelling before the village, I didn't really get it. But because of where I am now, I do get it. And storytelling and sharing, everybody has a story. Everybody has a life experience that's like unlike anybody else's. We're all uniquely designed and we all have a unique life. And the more we can connect with each other and learn about each other through storytelling, the better we can be for one another and be like Zach. Just be here, be with each other, right?
I love that. I love those type of stories. You're gonna make me cry, and I'm not supposed to be crying on this podcast, Sarah. So that's not...
I was tearing up because Zach and his family are amazing people, just amazing people.
Yeah, if you want to tug at my heartstrings, it is children and elderly. I mean, I just cannot stop the water if it's children and elderly. I love that. So my last question before you tell the Sister Leaders community what all you have going on, how they can support you and stay in contact with you on social media, any books, programs, if they want to work with you, I want you to just share it all, has to do with legacy. My last question has to do with legacy. So if you could leave one lasting impact on the future of HR and leadership, what would it be?
I think meet people where they are. And what I mean by that is if you can leverage a moment with someone to help them by meeting them where they are. I'm so sorry, my dogs are.
It's fine.
You can make an impact because a lot of times HR, we get into compliance and reporting and we've got to do things, and it's really easy to forget about the people, the humans that are involved every day. So if you can start at square one and meet those people where they are, you can make a difference. And I think as I was growing in my career, God continuously showed that to me over and over and over again. Like, meet this person where they are, Sarah. They're not a CEO. They're making $15, $12 an hour. They just need someone to listen to them. So that's my advice to any leader. Meet your people where they are. Come off your high horse if you're on one. Come out of your high offices and go meet your people where they are.
That is excellent, excellent advice. And so, where can the Sister Leaders community find you? What do you have going on? Obviously, you're going to be on the Sister Leaders stage October 3rd and 4th in Portsmouth, Virginia at the Rivers Casino. So, make sure you tap in so that you can hear more about the heart principle, but tell them more about you and where they can reach you online, because Sister Leaders is a global community.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, Sarah Valentine. I'm really easy to find. I try to be really active on LinkedIn, always engaging. I write articles. I also have my website, simplyhrllc.com, where you can immediately email me. I'm on Twitter, simplyhr, and I'm also on Facebook, Sarah Valentine. And you can always email me, Sarah Valentine at simplyhrllc.com, and I will get in touch. I love connecting and I love helping people, whether it's a leadership issue, an HR issue, or you just need some advice on career. I'm happy to be a sounding board and a guide.
Awesome. And so, in closing, I just will reiterate that Sarah is one of the awesome speakers of the Sister Leaders Conference, and the website is sisterleaders with a S conference.com. If you want to know more about the conference, if you've been under a rock somewhere, because we've definitely been promoting it everywhere, then go to the website. It'll give you all the information on, if you're one of our global partners, how you can look at it through live stream. Of course, we live stream. We had representatives of 6 different countries last year, so we hope to have similar. I'm fresh off of my trip from Spain, so I know some of my Spaniards will be watching this year. But make sure that you tap in either in person or virtually. Just be connected, because last year we were talking about women deserve to be seen more, heard more, and paid more. This year we're talking about her voice, her vision, her victory. And it is all about our victory. Together we can go far, we can do much. And we're going to continue this theme of partnership and collaboration with our brilliant minds. And so I'm not going to hold you too long. I am Dr. Karen Hills Pruden, and stay tuned for the next episode of Sister Leaders Podcast. Bye.